Okay, a slightly different video to usual. This time I'm going to be looking at what is ATAR music. Some students have been asking and they've finally given me the motivation to make this video. So a bit of a shout out to my Year 10 students. So the first and most obvious thing is the course is about helping you get better at playing music or your instrument. And maybe you could say on top of that, it hopefully will help you become better at understanding and appreciating music. And then what will you actually be doing in the course? Well, hopefully you'll be doing some of this kind of stuff. So you'll be doing some performing. You're going to be analyzing music to find out what makes the greatest music. You're going to be doing some music theory. You're going to be notating music by listening to it. And then you're going to be doing a composition. So these two here might be called literacy. And this one here in the course is called analysis. Is that how you spell analysis? Yeah. Oh my goodness, what am I doing? So a week might look like this, where you're doing one session of literacy, one session of analysis, one session of practical, and one session of composition. Then it would be recommended, if not demanded, that you get individual lessons, because it probably doesn't make sense to do ATAR music without getting individual lessons. And then probably recommended that you get into an after-school ensemble. Just makes it a lot more fun and enjoyable, and playing with other people is usually a lot more fun. Next up, we have the assessment overview. Here we go. So each semester, you'll do this, and you have 4 semesters which make up the course. So semester 1, year 11, semester 2, semester 1, year 12, semester 2, and then you're done. And these assessments just repeat each semester. So what have we got here? We've got a practical performance where you perform one piece. You've got 3 written bits, and then you've got a practical exam. Pretty straight ahead. You do have across the year, have one composition assignment you do as well. So let's talk about a practical assessment. First off, instrument, you can do it any instrument. So say it's me, I'm going to do piano. The context, you can do jazz, contemporary, musical theatre, or Western art, which is essentially classical music, some people might say. So I'm going to do jazz. The genre means what sort of style. You can do any style. Great, don't need to worry about that. Accompaniment, you can either play by yourself, you can use a backing track, or you can have accompanists, and you can have a band as well if you would like. You don't get any penalty or any advantage by doing that, but it's often recommended to use accompanists because it's more fun. Time, usually you've got to play between 12 and 20 minutes, which is about 3 songs, which is why I've set up here, perform 3 songs. Obviously, depending on the length of your songs, depends if that's true or not. Marking. Well, a practical assessment's marked pretty simply with that kind of stuff. That's fairly obvious. But it's also marked with this stuff, which maybe is a little bit more complicated. So expression would be marked out of 4, and that means dynamics and articulation and that kind of stuff. Interaction means how much you sort of interact with your backing track or your musicians, or even on a piano, maybe how your interaction between your left and your right hand and the balance and all that kind of stuff. The style is the big one here. It's worth 9, and this section here overall is worth 50%, which is quite a lot, obviously. Now, the reason that is because these are the things that make music come alive and are interesting. And so let's say for this style one particularly, you just learn your song. Great, you'll get 4 or 5, out of 9. Let's say you learn your song, but then you go and listen to some reference tracks like the original and some people's versions of it, and you copy them and make, get all the articulation and all the nuances of their song and copy it. Well, then you're going to maybe get, a 7 or an 8. And then for a 9 is you'd learn your song, you'd copy all the nuances of some great versions, and then you would add your own little interpretation to make it your own, and then that's how you're getting a 9. 3 marks, that means you get 10 marks here, or 10%, for writing the right scores, giving the right things to the examiners, going for the right length, that kind of stuff, choosing the right songs. What's next? Okay, well, if we looked at this, that means that one's done and that one's done. We can play the same song here and here, by the way. You don't have to do a new song. And then we've got these 3 written ones. So just before we look at the written ones, let me go back and remind you of this. The goal is to get better at playing music. And the written part is really trying to support that. Or you could be trying to get a greater understanding and appreciation of music. Oh, controversially, I think the best part of the course is rhythmic and melodic dictation. Stay with me here. I know writing it out here isn't the funnest part, but the ATAR course is here to try and keep you accountable to this skill that you won't do yourself, right? So that's a great part about the course. But the reason it's great, I think, is because it's the skill you actually want. Wouldn't it be great to be able to listen to a band that's playing next door, be able to recognize all the notes and the rhythms and everything, and then just go and join them without practicing? That's kind of what the skill is. It's to listen to music, write it out, I guess, in your head, and then play. You know, I'm average at music and I can kind of do that, which is such a fun skill to have. And it's the skill that most people are jealous of. The other great thing about this is if you're into composition at all, is if you sit down at a piano and try and compose something, you can only compose what you can play. But if you can write music down from your imagination, you can imagine an orchestra and you can write down what an orchestra is playing. So essentially you can play bassoon and French horn and all these other things because you can write it down and get it played by an orchestra and you can play all those instruments. So it's probably the best skill in the whole course, even though you don't think that. I know you don't think that. Enough of that. Some other written bits. You get some normal chord questions like this. This is actually taken from last year's WACE exam. If you want to know exactly, you can go and watch my video. I've got a year 11 and a year 12 one. You can watch everything there. You get some sort of analysis theory questions as well, which can be a little different from your usual year 7 to year 10 stuff. So it's like saying, hey, look at this. What compositional device can you find in here? So that there, for example, is a sequence. So you would get 1 mark for that. Brilliant. Oh, I put this one here. This is from last year's WACE exam. And I thought, you know, this is saying a tenuto, which is like play well held or smoothly. And this is an accent. I mean, that's year 7 stuff, if not earlier. So not all of the questions are hard and difficult. Oh, yes. Okay, so onto the analysis section of some of the assessments. So this stuff here you can read yourself, but essentially you learn about 3 pieces, which are considered some good pieces, and then you have to answer questions on them, and that's your analysis, and hopefully you learn something from it. So some of those questions tend to be theory questions, like listen to the music or look at the score and tell me what scale the piece is using. And then some more analysis questions, like write down the meaning of that kind of part of the song or the words or the lyrics or something like that. And that's another part. I mean, again, it's about getting better at music, and that's a really important part of playing great music, is making sure you know what the music means. Or not, I guess. Oh, my last slide. Some great questions I get from students all the time. What mark will I get? Okay, what mark you get? You'll get 65%. How do I know that? Well, because last 2 years, the practical mark has been 70 and the written mark's been 60, and you get 50% for each. So you're going to get 65 if you're average. What can I say? I guess if you think you're better than average, you'll get more than 65. Will it get moderated? What a student question. You ask that all the time. I don't know why you're so obsessed with this question. Yes, it will get moderated, but that's super helpful. That's what you want, because people go, hey, maths is easy, music's hard, Japanese is hard, I don't know, geography's easy, let's say. Well, it's not true, because the moderation makes them all the same hardness. That's the point of the moderation, is to make sure everything's the same difficulty. So there's no such thing as a hard subject. I bet you didn't know that before this video if you've got that far. And should I do the course? You should do the course if you want to become a better musician. Okay, that's me done. I'll see you next time.